Okay, we're live.
Yeah, exciting. So we have Team Kelley and Karen Mills-Alston and Shannon Woodruff from Riley.
And Amir Glogau from Guidely. Thank you guys for joining us. We're so excited this morning to be sharing with you two of our incredible purpose guides. We have Karen Mills-Alston, who is an Agape licensed spiritual practitioner. She has authored the book 10 Core Principles to Create a Life Worth Living. And she assists individuals, couples, and families in remembering that life is for us and that transformation happens when we consciously choose a new way of showing up fully. And with practice, we can discover our purpose. We also have Tim Kelley, who's devoted to creating and revealing heaven on earth and helping clients do the same. He is the author of True Purpose, 12 Strategies for Discovering the Difference That You Are Meant to Make. After earning a degree from MIT, working his way up the top echelons of Oracle, and then retiring from the US Navy, he now bridges the worlds of psychology, spirituality, and business. We're so excited to have you both.
Delighted to be here.
Yes, thank you.
So maybe we start with the books. I mean, I would love to hear a little bit more about what made you write your book. What was the message, and what drove you to this?
Karen, why don't you start us off?
Okay, I'm
You
happy.
guys are both being so polite. Jump in.
I'm happy. Yes, so my book is called, I have a series of books. It's a 3-series book, 10 Principles for a Life Worth Living. And I have to remember the subtitle, A Guide for Actively and Purposefully Participating in Your Life. I wrote this book because I had experienced the transition of my husband. My husband had been diagnosed in 2008 with a glioblastoma multiforme and given 6 months to live. He lived for 2.5 years. We had been working together in our business, John Alston Presents. He was an author, a speaker, traveled around the world delivering messages, doing trainings. And the book really talks about what allowed me to move forward as I was assisting him in his living for 2.5 years with this diagnosis, and how I was able to incorporate practices in my life that allowed me not only to survive that experience, but to thrive in it and to be able to move into a phase now where I'm living my life on purpose. John was the talent, and I supported him when in our 25-year marriage. And I could not be doing what I'm doing without that experience. And so now I'm living an additional purpose, and I'm loving it right now. I really am.
This is so incredible and touching. Thank you for sharing this, Karen.
Yes.
I coincidentally or not, I listened last night for the second time to David Kessler. Are you familiar with David Kessler?
I'm not.
So David Kessler wrote multiple books about grief, and he added the 6 step of grief and its purpose. So he worked with the original, I can't remember her name, the lady who set the 5 steps of grief.
Yes.
And he worked closely with her, and with the permission of their foundation, added the 6th step, which is purpose.
Yes. You know, I really believe that there are individuals that we've made a relationship with before, with our souls, before we came here to live this life. And so John and I apparently made an agreement that he was supposed to live. He was supposed to be my master teacher, one of my master teachers, and he taught me how to love unconditionally, how to give, how to be the person that I am. So, you know, at the time I didn't know that. My prayer was that he would heal his body temple. His body temple would be healed. what I learned was how to pray without an expectation to the outcome. That if there's this soul agreement that was made before we came to this earth plane, then I get to let go and surrender and be the beneficiary of what is the result of that particular experience. So I'm here living these principles right now and teaching and, really living a life that I did not expect to live in this particular way.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Karen.
Yes.
Tim, do you want to share your journey that led you to write the book, and what's the primary message of True Purpose?
Well, I'd love to, but that's kind of a tough one to follow. I don't know about that.
No competition here.
No competition.
Oh no,
here.
that's not what I meant at all. I just that was lovely and touching, and really, I think illustrative of how many people come to purpose. Right, is often through negative experiences. In my case, it wasn't a single negative experience like that. It was actually a lifetime of asking why. How 3-year-olds always ask, why? I didn't stop. I didn't grow out of it. And I was really unhappy with the answers I was getting from the adults. And so one way I like to say it is that kind of the design of my personality is that I have a higher than average need for meaning. Everyone needs some meaning in their lives, and I need a whole bunch. And it was honestly somewhat disabling for me in that not having these bigger answers was a source of sort of what, in retrospect, was low-level background depression. And it wasn't until I was I had dropped out of being very high at Oracle Corporation because it was too unfulfilling, and got into consciousness work that I eventually found my purpose more or less by accident. And in the realization, in the moment of discovering my purpose, one of the things I discovered was that part of my purpose was to help others find theirs. And it was really kind of shocking and upsetting to me because, I have such a math and science and technology background. It was such a departure from who I knew myself to be that it took me a couple of years to really muster up the courage to start doing that as my day job. And then a couple of years after that, after I'd had success working with clients and training coaches and consultants, this thing started to happen where I would just be lying in bed at night and the book would start writing itself in my head. There'd be like a few paragraphs there in my brain, and I'd roll over and go to sleep. And one night I couldn't go to sleep, so I had to get up and go downstairs at 3 a.m. It's like, all right, already, I'll start writing the book. And the book is called True Purpose. And because I have an engineering background, in a way, it's kind of like an engineering book in the sense that it's all about methodology. It's like, if you want to find your purpose, here is one way. If that doesn't work for you, do this. If that doesn't work for you, do this. And part of the reason for that was that some of the books I had read, which were very inspiring, I was really looking for specific advice about how to find my purpose. And there was, in some cases, none, in other cases, very little of that. And that was frustrating for me as someone who was looking for the answer. I didn't want to read about other people and what purposeful lives they were leading. It's like, oh, that's good for them. How do I find mine? And so I wrote the book with that in mind. What are the techniques and which ones work better than which other ones, and that sort of thing. So it's really very much a how-to.
So we keep saying the word purpose, and I wish I had a counter of how many times we're going to say that during this session, but what is purpose? And what is, finding purpose? Is there one purpose? Is there multiple? Is there finding purpose in what's the purpose of this, or is it my big purpose? What is purpose to you guys? Karen, maybe you want to start.
Yeah, I believe that purposes are meant to be. The reason that we are here, and there are many purposes that we can have in our lives. I believe that we are each needed and necessary, and that we have come to these body temples at this particular time to really develop our gifts and talents and give them to the world. That's why we're here. We're here because we're needed and necessary. Each and every one of us is needed and necessary and essential. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So, yeah, our purpose is our meant to be, and we have many purposes. You know, I was a daughter, I was a college student, I was a lobbyist, I was a wife, I was a business owner with my husband, and and now I'm doing the work that I'm doing right now. And all those purposes allowed me to get to exactly where I am right here and right now. Nutshell for me. That's it.
Mm-hmm. It's good. You're showing your skills. Most people can't say it that concisely, Karen. That was good. I completely agree. So the meant to be or the why, right? Why am I here would be another way of saying effectively the same thing Karen said.
Yes.
Or also riffing off something she said, how would the world be less if I weren't here would be another way of saying it, right? There's something that would go undone if I didn't exist. Think about like that. It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart, like pull that one person out. It's like, whoa, so there's something now that the question is easy to ask. Why am I here? But the answer isn't usually that easy to come up with. Sometimes it is. Very rarely. There are some people who are like born knowing that they're going to spend their whole life making beautiful music with a violin. And you ask them at age 6 and you ask them at age 80 and they give you the same answer. But for most of us, me included, it's a much, much tougher nut to crack. It's much tougher to figure out, well, why am I here, right? And like Karen said, we have all these different roles, and each of those roles has its own purpose. And is there an overarching purpose for one's whole life? I would say yes, but that doesn't mean it's easy to tell what that is, right? And does it change is another question, right? And I'm honestly undecided on that. I know people who absolutely believe we have one purpose for our lifetime, and that's that, and it doesn't change, and it gets revealed at deeper and deeper levels. I know other people who believe that as we evolve, our purpose evolves too. And I don't know how I would go about proving that one of them was right and the other one was wrong. So my attitude is I just say, great, whatever you believe, that sounds good to me, right?
And I say that we embrace it all. We embrace it all. I believe that we're here to be a beneficial presence on the planet. If we are needed and necessary, then the overarching theme is that we get to be a beneficial presence. And I believe that it comes from unconditional love. So we begin with loving ourselves, and then we treat others the way that we want to be treated. We say yes to when we get information where human beings may say, oh, I'm really jealous of that. Well, if somebody has some information that they're sharing with us, it's an idea of how we can grow and expand because of that information individually. So individually, we have things that we get to do that nobody else can do on this earth plane. Overall, we get to be a beneficial presence, and we get to be a loving, kind, generous, inclusive presence.
I love the beneficial presence frame because that gets at some of what the question is, which is, I'm a different presence than you, Karen, or different than Shannon, or different than Amir. So if I'm living to my full potential as a beneficial presence, then I'm creating the maximum benefit that I could create in this lifetime. That's going to look very different than if you're living to your full potential as a beneficial presence and creating the greatest benefit you could in your lifetime. And to me, that goes to the heart of the question.
Yes.
What would I be doing if I were creating the maximum benefit? And what would you be doing if you were creating the maximum benefit? And how would that be different?
Yes. And living fully, because I love that, the fullness of life. And the fullness of life for me really is about living life in the realm of the infinite possibilities. So we step away from habits, patterns, and false beliefs that we may have been brought up with, or people may say that we're not worthy or we're not good enough or anything like that. So we move through our lives with assistance to break away, to remove those doubts so that we can live fully as joy, as abundance, as peace, as harmonizing good, as excellence, as creativity, all of those things. It's really very, very important. So, and it's all doable. That's what I love. However it is that we do it to the full extent that we're willing to live our lives.
So you're leading us to the next question, but I really want to stay with this one for a second, because you made a distinction. We're using different terminology for purpose, and a question that comes to me is it finding the purpose of where we are or why we're here, like as in right now, right here, or where we're going? And I ask that in the sense of, sometimes we're in a conflict or in distress or, in challenge. And I believe that those have a purpose.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So finding the purpose of a situation, is that part of what you both are talking about? Or finding our, why we're here on this planet in this, body as a bigger picture, is that the purpose we're looking for, or both?
It sounds like meaning. Like meaning is, we're looking for meaning in this, or meaning and purpose, the same thing.
Well, or intention, right? So we can talk about intentions. I love talking about intentions because it's about setting a direction for our lives. I believe that everything is for us, that nothing that shows up in my life, I can make a judgment and say that it's negative, but I believe that everything is for me so that I can grow and expand. It may not feel like it's for me, but when I set that intention, when I have an intention to move forward, when I have an intention to vibrate at a willingness to grow and expand in my life, then I become open and available to inspirational thoughts. So I get to remember, as an individualized expression, I have come here to live my purpose. The way to do that is to set intentions, direction for my life, the way that I want to show up. And, and I also talk about, I think so many of us, we have practices in our lives that allow us to move forward. So when we get snagged by something, instead of reacting, we respond to it. Some of us meditate, some of us pray, some of us vision. Whatever that is that we do, those are tools that get to be in place so that we can really reveal our purpose in life if we're not sure, and stay in the now moment. That's what's really important. So the intention allows us to set a direction, a goal for our lives. And when we have practices in place, those practices allow us to build the stamina to move forward.
Yeah, and the intentions that Karen's talking about, I think, go to the heart of your question, Amir, which is you can have purposes at different levels, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the life purpose level, which is why am I incarnate at all, right? And for some people who think beyond that, right, if you're a spiritual or religious person, you believe in life after death, the purpose could be beyond one lifetime, potentially, right? And then there's the purpose of my purpose for today, or my purpose on this call, or as you said, Amir, I'm having this really difficult interaction with my parents or my spouse or my kids or something like that. What is the purpose here? How do I make meaning of this? And what I find is having the highest level that you have access to, right? If I have a life purpose, it can shed light on some of these other intentions that Karen's talking about, right? That the in between and the lower level intentions are kind of how you operationalize and manifest this larger purpose. So the purpose of this interaction presumably serves my life purpose in some way. And if I take my life purpose and saying, okay, well, what would purposeful behavior look like in this situation with my spouse right now? Given my purpose, how should I act? It's amazing how it can transform a single situation or interaction or problem at work or death of a loved one or something like that, how that can be informed and healed to some extent by bringing in that larger purpose into this situation, right? That's really the benefit of the larger purpose. It can't just be a long-term goal that's floating out there in space forever. It has to get used today.
That's beautiful. So makes me curious and okay, so how do we find our purpose? Like, how do you guys help your clients find their purpose? Tim, you want to start this, or go ahead, Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the I'm an Agape licensed spiritual practitioner, which means that I'm a spiritual therapist. And what I know when I sit with a client is that the purpose is already within them. They get to reveal it. They get to surrender to it. So when I sit with clients, I will ask them specific questions that come through me. And it may be, why are you here? Why are you here on this earth plane at this particular time? Because at this particular time, that's maybe the only thing that the client is concerned about. They want to know, how can I be more loving? How can I be more abundant? How can I be more joy-filled? How can I do what I've come here to do? So through asking them questions and giving them practices, the practices that I give my clients, it's like homework. So I work with clients. Let's set up a meditation practice. Let's begin to listen to that eternal internal broadcast that I call God, that is always speaking to you. Let us find a way so that you can move your head to your heart, so you can hear it now, so you can become open and available to it, that is saying to you why you are here. I also ask my clients to begin asking questions just out loud. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? What information is here for me in this particular experience? So this is about really being in tune with the presence and coming back to it all the time, remembering that we are one with it. And this never changes. And this is our human condition. It may change, and we get to return to it and begin to make mindful choices, begin to say, think, and show up mindfully, begin to use certain words to describe ourselves. The question that I've been asking clients a lot is, what do you say to yourself about yourself? So we have this internal dialogue that is going on. We're not even aware that it's happening. So those are just a few things, ways that I work with clients to remind them that they're here on purpose, and they know what it is. They just get to discover it.
So quick question before I turn the mic to you, Tim. Karen, how do you know, or how do the client knows when they got there? When it is, okay, now I know.
I don't believe that there's a there. I believe that we're always growing and expanding. The client will know when there's a click. They will know. They will know within themselves. I can't tell them that. They know exactly what it is. And and they will know it, I'll say it this way, by the way that they're feeling. So maybe they've come to me and they're in worry, doubt, and fear. That's the constant song that they're singing. And then after various practices, their connection with the presence within them that is always there, they're feeling a vibrational match with something that is higher. That may be how they know, with the feeling tone within their body. It begins to feel brighter and higher, and it's their natural way of being. That's how they'll know. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Tim, how do you work with your clients?
Well, it's very much the same. I just want to say, being a methodology guy, I just have to say the way most people go about finding their purpose is either what I call ask and wait. I wonder what my purpose is. And then 10 years go by. Or trial and error. This might be my purpose. Let me try that. This might be my purpose. Try that, right? Like that, which takes a very long time. Or the way some people find it, as I did, is by accident, where it just shows up, right? You hit your head in the shower, or a loved one dies, you get diagnosed with cancer, your kids leave home, something like that happens, you get a dark night of the soul, and your purpose shows up. That's a very effective and very unpleasant way to go about finding your purpose. But the methods I use are the same ones Sharon talked about, which is I just want to tease them apart a little bit. The one is the inquiry-based method, right, where you're asking the client questions and they're reflecting on their life and reflecting on their experiences, because our lives contain clues about our purpose. And if you can gather up enough information about somebody's life, you can kind of connect the dots and say, oh, your purpose must be something like this. And then the deeper method, which Karen also described, is seeking some form of inner wisdom, some internal voice, some guidance system. She called the presence within, right? People use all different names for these things. But if you can get in touch with that, you can actually learn to communicate with it. And then you can just ask it, what's my purpose? And it tells you.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And that's the most direct and most powerful method, but you have to create the right conditions for that conversation to occur. Right. And back to Karen's earlier point about fears and beliefs and stuff that come up that block that sort of thing. So that's my favorite method. And it sounds like it's Karen's favorite as well. So cool when the client's inner voice starts talking to them about their purpose. It's just awesome. And then to the how do you know, again, what Karen said is absolutely accurate, that there's a change in feeling state when the person articulates their purpose out loud. And my purpose is to, and you have them say it, and then something will happen. They'll burst into laughter or tears or panic or something, but they will have a physical and emotional reaction, and it will be strong. That's how you know when you've hit the purpose, right? If they're just like, then that wasn't it, right? And we actually have other tests. There's ways you can kind of go back and look at the person's life and see. They can test drive it. There's like 9 or 10 different things we can do to verify that the purpose is accurate. And Karen's right, the wording will likely evolve. But for today, we can verify whether this purpose is accurate for you or not. A year from now, we might need to tweak it, but
when I found my purpose statement and I went through the painful process of the dark night of the soul, the scenic route, and I was able to articulate it to myself. The feeling is like putting on your favorite pair of jeans, right? Like the best pair of jeans that you're like, oh, these always fit perfect. They feel great. And then, our style evolves or fashion changes and we have to find a new pair of jeans, but we get to, sit in that feeling of like finding it and that feeling of it fitting. So,
which isn't the only possible experience, right? Sometimes when the person says their purpose out loud, they feel panic or terror because it's such a challenge that they can't imagine being successful at it. Other people, it's like they just know that is correct. And other people, even though they have a strong physical emotional reaction to it, have strong skeptical reactions, like saying, well, wait a minute, how do I know that that's my purpose? This is the kind of guy I am, right? Being the techno sort. It's like, how can you prove to me? Like this sort of thing comes up a lot for people too. And of course, there's no like hard proof to be had, but you can definitely show that a purpose is accurate using these various techniques.
Yeah, and I want to say that there's this process called the life visioning process that was originated by Michael Bernard Beckwith. And this is where we catch Spirit's idea of our lives. So in order to, and that's something that gets to be used whenever we want to use it. And that's where the questioning happens. So it begins, it doesn't begin here, but it begins with the questions here. And I language it this way. What is Spirit's big idea of itself as me? Fully expressed. And then it goes into, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And then what gifts and talents can I remember that support this vision? And then is there anything that I need to forgive, to let go, to surrender, to release that no longer serve me? So each one of those questions can be taken and lived through day to day. So someone could simply ask, as they're going about their day, what is Spirit's big idea of itself as me? Or what am I supposed to do in this lifetime? And to be able, I love asking questions out loud. I love articulating things so that I can hear and feel it. And then I begin to develop this visceral response to what I know comes through me that is for me. So life visioning process, it's a powerful process.
I love to do visioning after purpose, interestingly, because once the purpose is clear, then the question is, great, what would that look like if you were successful at that? What would your life become? What would the world become? Because most purposes are about changing the world in some way. So I love to lead people through a visioning process after finding their purpose so they can get clear about what future they're trying to create with that purpose, and then set goals and create practices, just like Karen was saying about earlier, in order to manifest that vision.
So it sounds like you both have the fundamental method is talking to some internal voice, whether you call it one thing or another.
Yes.
And download the answers.
Not the only way, but that's the most fun.
Right. And obviously, I have done this process with you, Tim, and I was very fortunate. And I know one of the things that happened to me when we did this process was that I could not imagine myself being big enough.
Yes.
Or it scares. So I think when you listen to the voice, it's always, is it an imagination? Is it true? Can it be that way? Or even, how do you work with the noise, in the system? How do you work around and a question to both. I see that both of you have
a lot of heads nodding over there.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so I find it's important to do that work before talking to this internal voice and after. So the before is to clear up the noise that would interfere with hearing what it has to say. And that noise usually takes the form of, well, wait a minute, how do I know it's really the right voice? And how do I know it's my purpose? And what if this happens? And what if that happens? It's usually fears about the process going wrong, the purpose being wrong, or the manifestation of the purpose going off the rails, stuff like that. Okay. Or sometimes, as Karen mentioned earlier, limiting beliefs, like there's no way that an internal voice can tell me my purpose, right? As long as I believe that, then it's not going to work. So there's that kind of noise that has to get cleared up ahead of time. And I usually do that by creating a sort of conditions of safety for the person so that they feel safe asking the question and hearing the answers. Sometimes we have to poke deeper and we have to start talking to the different voices in their head and stuff like that may have a vested interest in the process not working before we do that. Then we get the purpose and validate the purpose, and then all the noise shows up again. And the second time the noise sounds different. Oh no, I can't succeed at that purpose. It's too big for me. all this long list of horrible things will go wrong if I try to manifest that purpose. I should go back to what I was doing before, right? That's how the noise typically sounds after the fact, after the purpose has been found. So now we have to re-clear all the noise so the person can get some traction at manifesting their purpose. How would you say it, Karen?
I believe that it all works together, all of it. I believe that if we have certain practices in place that we practice consistently every single day, then we get to clear away those things for ourselves. We get to be reminded, and Tim and I had a discussion about the ego. I believe that the ego, and I was remembering this recently, ego can stand for easing God out. So the ego will keep us limited. It keeps us small. Our human mind, there are certain things that we want to do that is meant for us to do. Our human mind can't even believe it. So it says, you can't do that. That's not possible. But when we begin to sit and move from the chatter to what may be possible, what is possible, what is wanting to birth itself through us so that we can be in sync with our purpose, then we can do things that we cannot even imagine with our human mind that is possible, because we are listening. And whatever you call it, some people call it a gut, some people call it intuition, some people call it the still small voice, the eternal broadcast, God, whatever it is that you call it, to be able to become aware and distinguish it between a limiting belief and that belief that wants to fully express through us. That's what is all possible. That's how we get to live our lives beyond anything we can possibly imagine. And it takes training, and it takes consistent training within ourselves. Nobody's going to ask us, did you meditate today? Nobody's going to ask us, are you paying attention to what you're saying to yourself about yourself? Nobody's going to do that. It's something that we have to begin to incorporate in our own lives.
So
and the ego is very deeply invested in safety. And so
Yes.
it almost automatically creates a false dichotomy between staying safe or living my purpose. Right.
Yes.
That's the fork in the road that presents after finding the purpose.
Yes, that's the choice that we get to make. Absolutely.
Right. And I'm saying it's a false choice, because the real question is, how do I manifest my purpose safely, as opposed to seeing it as an either or, right? Because it is possible to manifest a purpose unsafely, can be done. It's happened.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what that means, Tim. What is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes people find their purpose and they get super excited. I try to prevent people from doing this when possible. They get super excited and then they start immediately making drastic life-altering decisions without thinking through the consequences well, because they're feeling super inspired and think they can't fail, right? So they divorce their husband and quit their job and run off to do something. And it's like, whoa, slow, hang on. You might need that paycheck next week. So it's trying to keep people from. It doesn't happen very often, but I have seen it happen. Is try to get people from, and this is if someone really sees it as a dichotomy between living their purpose and being safe and chooses purpose, it could look very ugly. The much bigger risk is that they'll keep steering towards the safety and lose the purpose. That's what typically happens. And the question is, what's a thing you could do with your purpose that would be safe, that you could do today? Don't worry about, changing the world, creating peace in the Middle East, ending starvation, 20 years from now. What's something you could do that's purposeful today? And what's something you could do that's purposeful tomorrow? What's something you could do that's purposeful the next day? That's safe, that you feel capable of doing. Good, do that. Let's park the other stuff, do that. And then like Karen said, once you've got a practice of engaging with this stuff after a period of time, then people's risk tolerance will go up because they can see, I am safe and I am manifesting my purpose. Let me do a little more. It's kind of like stretching or exercising. You don't want to do too much on your first day. You'll hurt yourself and put yourself back, right? It's like go to the limit, hang out there a little bit, and then ease up, right? And then do the same thing tomorrow.
So this is perfectly in line with the comments I wanted to share that came in a little bit ago from one of our viewers that says it's important to decide, plan, and execute tasks according to what we say our purpose is without feeling obligated or convicted. So I hear you, Tim, saying we're coming from a place of empowerment and power without, oh, I've got this purpose now and I've got to burn everything down in order to make sure that it happens.
I have to do it. I can't do anything that's not purposeful. Everything must be 100% purposeful from now on, right? As opposed to what I encourage people to do, and organizations can do this with companies too. It's like, okay, so here's a choice you're facing. And we're always thinking of different criteria, which one's safer, which one makes more money, which one make me look better, which one will make me happy. We're always doing that math in our heads without even thinking about it whenever we're making choices, right? And what I'm saying is we'll just tack one more question on there. Which one's more aligned with my purpose? And the purpose one doesn't have to override all the others. Right? If this one's safe, will make me happy, it'll make me money, and it'll make me look good, and it's not purposeful, I might want to do it anyway. Sounds pretty good, right? But to include the question, which is more purposeful, and factor the answer into the decision. If I can do that consistently, then my life will keep edging towards purpose over time.
Love that.
That's awesome. So I gotta put ourselves in a context of, the times we're in, and this year has been, we're all here in the U.S. I'm from Israel, so my heart is over there with the conflict there. But there has been a lot of internal conflict in this country this year, with different challenges, the pandemic. How do you find purpose in those? I mean, when you have, and what's the purpose of it? And is it really important to find the purpose?
Well, this has been a time for me to almost hibernate. And I think that there is always an opportunity for anyone who chooses it to begin to recalibrate their lives. A lot of people are having to recalibrate their lives. So in these times, it's about doing something that is different. I mean, can you imagine maybe someone has been laid off from a job that they didn't like, that they had been doing for many years, and they would get up, go to work, come home, go to bed. I mean, that was how they lived their lives. So we were all put in this cocoon that allowed us to rethink our purpose for our lives. If I could do anything that I wanted to do to make me happy, what would it be? That's a powerful question to begin to live life. So this time has been for us. And some have used it have recalibrated their lives. They've started new businesses. They've found new purposes. A lot of things have come up. And so that's the way that this time gets to be used. And I think that it's powerful. Now there's some people who haven't been able to do that.
Right.
So they haven't been able to do that.
So when I'm taking concierge calls, because you can hop on a call and match with a guide and talk to me directly, I hear exactly what you're saying is, so many people were in this, kind of this life where they had the job and they punched in, they punched out, and it was good enough. It was fine. But the rug got pulled out this last year, and now they're on this precipice of, okay, how do I can't go back. There's no back. How do I find purpose moving forward? And that's where working with someone like you.
And really to know that everything is working for us. Everything is working for us. And that's why guides are important. That's why Guidely is important, because there is something that is seeking to emerge individually and collectively. And we get to say yes to it, or something greater is seeking to emerge. We get to say yes to it, or we get to flounder. We get to be ordinary. We are meant, I believe that we are meant to be excellent in our lives. If we are all needed, necessary, and essential, then this time has allowed us to do something else, to become something more, to really activate that beneficial presence in our awareness. And it can be difficult. It can be challenging. But if we remember that this is for us, then we get together with like-minded individuals that can help us move forward.
I think everything Karen's saying is true, and it can sound dissonant if you're experiencing a lot of suffering, right?
Yes.
If your company has disappeared, or your job has disappeared, or your whole industry has disappeared as a result of what's going on. Maybe you've lost loved ones, and in the midst of all that suffering and angst and oppression of events, it can be very hard to see that as guidance towards a positive future. It doesn't look like that at all in the midst of it. And I don't want to minimize anybody's suffering.
Yes.
And it's important to be able to imagine that 10 or 20 years from now, you could look back and say, oh my God, that's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
Because if not for that, I wouldn't have done this, and I wouldn't have evolved in this way, and I wouldn't have grown in this way, and I wouldn't be the man or the woman that I am today, right? And that's the thing that's important. And the difficulty is that in the moment when you're staring into the void, it doesn't look like that at all.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so difficult to do this stuff on your own, because everything in you is screaming that it wants the safe situation back. It doesn't see this as an improvement. Right? I like to think about the caterpillar turning into a chrysalis and sitting there all boxed in and going, last week I was walking around eating leaves. That was better than this. Now I'm stuck in this little box and I'm turning into goo. This is a step backwards here. And, think about it, right? If you don't know the plan, it looks like things just got a whole lot worse. Now, we know that later you'll be able to fly, okay? But the thing in the chrysalis doesn't necessarily know that. It's going, yuck, I've turned into goo. And so when you're in the goo, it doesn't look like things are getting better. There's this dip.
I needed that reminder. Thank you.
So did I.
And it's so true. It's so true. And I know that we've all have experienced things where something has happened, and then we look back a month later and we think, oh, that's why that happened.
We're lucky it's only a month.
We're lucky if it's only a month. It could be years. I didn't know that dark nights of the souls could go on for years.
They can. Dark years of the soul.
Dark years of the soul. Yes. So
for those of our viewers who might not be familiar with that phrase, would one of you like to explain what a dark night of the soul is?
Karen, I think you're more qualified than I.
I don't know what I am. I will. There are times when we feel as if we are not supported, that the bottom has fallen out of our lives, that nothing is working for us, that everything is against us. And this is really, there's this saying, you will need the dark to turn into more life. So the darkness can be deemed an incubation period. It can be a time for us to be willing to keep moving, keep putting one foot in front of another, getting assistance in order to do that, and then allowing that which is wanting to births itself. The darkness and the light needs to work together. So a dark night of the soul doesn't feel good. When I move into it, and I go through a dark night of the soul, and because I have a realization, oh, this is an opportunity. Something is birthing here. Something I don't know about is getting ready to rise up. I now am at a point in my life where I get excited about those dark nights. In the beginning, wasn't excited about them. They were harsh. They were horrible. I didn't know what was going to happen. And now it's an opportunity for growth and expanded awareness if I can just stay focused and have practices in place, get together with guides, support, systems, so that I can really move forward. That's what this is all about. It's about getting assistance so that we can move forward in our lives. This is the purposeful part of all of this. Life is for us. We're here on purpose. And we have organizations that allow us to be assisted to be able to move forward. Sometimes that moving forward is just an inch away and we have given up. So we get to stay propelled to move forward so that we can move out of it. It does happen.
Yeah, these dark nights of the soul are deeply unpleasant experiences where it looks like there's no path forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so, losing one's career or job, losing a loved one, people who've suffered from addiction talk about it. They call it hitting bottom, right? Where you've done a really good and effective job at destroying all the structures in your life. And now you're just like staring into the mirror going, ugh. So it takes many forms. What matters about it is it's really unpleasant and it raises deeper questions of meaning.
Yes.
Right? Most of us are fundamentally a little bit lazy in that when everything's going great, we don't really have time for the deeper questions, right? If the experience we're having feels good, then we just want more of it.
Yes.
And so these deeper questions don't really manage to squeeze their way onto our calendar and our to-do list. But when your life is unraveled and you don't have to go to work anymore because you don't have a job, then it's like, now you've got some. This happened to me when I flunked out of school. I flunked out of MIT and then wound up getting recalled to active duty in the Navy because I was in officer training. But they demoted me down to like a deck swabby. So I had lots of time while I was swabbing decks on the ship to think about my life choices, right? So this is what happened. And Jean Marie's asking this question: how do you reinvent yourself after 50? Right. So the fact she's asking that question means that whatever invention she was up till now isn't working for her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And purpose is a way to do that. It's not the only way, but to say, oh, good, you find your life purpose and use that as a compass to show you the path forward from here. Because usually at those junctures, we can see back really clearly. We cannot see forward clearly. And that's what the purpose is for. It's a lantern to show us the path through the fog.
Yes. And I love what you said, that we, when things are great, things are great. We have money in the bank. We're in great relationships. Everything is fine. But what happens when the bottom does fall out? What happens when we lose our jobs? So this idea of having practices in place, that we practice no matter what, so that we can move forward, it's really important. When I was a kid and I was brought up metaphysically, I remember being 15 and writing down a list of intentions, things, and these intentions were I was outlining things. I wanted this, I wanted that, and I was able to manifest them. And I remember at some point in my life saying to myself, what would happen if I did this every day? If I had different practices in place, what would that look like? Well, at that point, I probably was still in school, didn't think about it. And now when I'm at this point in my life, and I know that these practices maintain and sustain me, it's important that I do some kind of practice every single day. And we all have something in place. When I work with clients, they often talk about gratitude. One of the first principle of my book is begin each day in a spirit of gratitude. So even when we're waking up in the morning, even when we don't feel like it, we have something to be grateful for. And that gratitude allows more things to be grateful to manifest in our lives. So having something like that that raises our vibration so that we can be open and receptive to what wants to show up in our lives, that's an important practice.
I just want to bring it back to Jean Marie because she's still asking questions here. Clearly, she's having an issue. I want to make sure she gets some attention. So she's saying, I don't know my purpose. I assumed you didn't know what your purpose was, Jean Marie, because you're asking how to reinvent yourself after 50, right? So if you knew your purpose in detail, it would give you guidance on how to reinvent yourself, what your life would look like through the next phase. It would give you information about what you could be doing and who you could be being and evolving into that would create the life you're looking for going forward. So I assumed, I wasn't saying, oh, well, just use your purpose, Jean Marie, assuming you were knowing it. I know you don't know it. That's what people like Karen and I do for a living, is help people find and clarify that purpose.
Yes.
So they can come up with a plan moving forward. I wish I could wave a magic wand and give you that purpose right now. I'm not that skillful yet. Give me time. But yes, today I can't do that. So you would need to.
Can.
But Karen, you need to get help, right? If you just like it's I know this state where you're just sitting there going, I don't know my purpose. I want to know my purpose. That doesn't resolve typically.
Yes.
That's a spin cycle. It just keeps going around. And then to make it worse, you can get like the critical voices in your head saying, yeah, but you should. You're 50 years old. You ought to know your purpose by now. Right? And now you're making yourself wrong for not knowing your purpose. And then it gets worse, right? None of this is productive. None of this is useful. None of it moves the ball down the field, right? I like to put it this way. I say to people, like, people know that they're not qualified to be brain surgeons. People know that they're not qualified to play a violin with a philharmonic orchestra. People know that they're not able to land a plane without being told, right? Unless they've had the proper training and they do know how to do that. But most of us don't. I don't know how to do any of those things, okay? But somehow, I don't know why, people think they should be able to find their own purpose without any help or training whatsoever. I don't know why people think that. Right? If I asked you to perform dental surgery on me, you'd say no, because you know you don't know how to do that. But you're telling yourself you should know how to find your purpose. Why do you think you should know how? It's a process. It's a technical thing that requires training, just like this other stuff.
Karen, you had something to.
Yeah, I would invite Jean Marie to begin to even put that question in an affirmation, just to begin. I know my purpose. My purpose is seeking to emerge, and my purpose is revealing itself to me. So even setting ourselves up to be open and available to hearing what that purpose is begins something. So to say, I don't know my purpose, it continues not knowing that purpose. So I know my purpose, and I'm guided and directed to discover what that purpose is. That's where Glogau comes in.
Right. Yeah. So Jean Marie, call Shannon. That would be the next step. Don't just sit there and make yourself wrong for being stuck. Call Shannon, get help.
So I gotta ask one last question, and maybe we'll see if there are other questions, and open, our audience that have been patient with us to ask questions if they have any before we wrap this up. But why is it so important to find our purpose? Like, what's okay, so I'll live my life, and like you said, if nothing is wrong, then why is it so important to get into that journey, and what's the potential impact on my life if I don't, or if I do?
I believe that we're here to live meaningful lives. And there are only a certain percentage of people on this globe who are doing this kind of work. I think it's less than 2%. And so most people are showing up and they're doing what they're doing, and they're living lives that are not meaningful, not purposeful, but they're They're getting up, go to work, come home, go to bed. They're doing that. And they're not living their lives fully. So a purpose-filled life means that we are doing what we love to do. That's really what it's about. When we're doing what we love to do, and because we're doing what we're loving to do, we're not only lifting up the vibration of those around us, we're lifting up this planet. Why not? Why not be joy-filled? Why not be happy? Why not live a life that is meaningful and purposeful? We don't have to affect millions of people all over the world, but we do get to, maybe we get to do something kind and loving to somebody because we're in this vibrational essence of enjoying life and living it abundantly.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And let me say that some people are living meaningful lives, even though they don't know their purpose. And in that case, if someone's really feeling fulfilled and their life is full of meaning, I would say, don't bother, right? Purpose is a tool, it's a technique, it's a strategy for finding what's fulfilling and meaningful. If you've already found it, you don't need it. It's sort of like my wife just bought a car last year. If someone came and offered to paint her car, she'd say, no, it's fine, right? Now, 10 years from now, when it's all chipped and worn, if they offered, she might be like, okay, yeah, it needs a paint job, right? So if your life doesn't need a paint job, don't spend the time and money and energy on the paint, right? So, and I feel strongly about this. It's got to be one of two things. Either you're feeling a lack of meaning, a lack, like you're what Karen described, like you're getting up, you're going through the motions, or you need to reinvent yourself. Either you have internal clues to that, or your external life is falling apart. You have to reinvent yourself. Those are all really good reasons to find your purpose. The other reason is some of those 2% that Karen's talking about just like the idea. It's like, oh, I want one of those, right? Yeah. Really? I can have a purpose? Where do I order that? Because some people are just into it, right? Amir, you weren't suffering when we worked on your purpose. Your life hadn't fallen apart. That was an unnecessary upgrade.
Right.
So that's okay. Unnecessary upgrades are cool. They're welcome. Some people are just really want the extra boost, the inspiration. They have this urge to change the world. And if they can have a purpose, they'll get one, right? But if you don't have one of those two motives, I would say don't do it.
So you've been through Tim's process, and what is the outcome? What is the, looking back now, you worked with Tim to discover your purpose. How have you noticed your life differently?
So it doesn't happen overnight. And sitting here today, one of my purpose statements is to share, Tim, I think you asked the question, if you could stand on a podium in front of the entire universe, what would you want to tell them? And what I tell people is that you're never alone. That's this is my mission here in Guidely. This is my, in my purpose. So, and I do want to touch millions of people, Karen. I will try to do some kind actions to individuals here and there too. Yes. But I do want to change millions of people's lives.
Yeah, and that's a powerful purpose. Yes, and there are some individuals don't see beyond a certain number of people. Yeah, yeah, and you have this incredible vision, which is beautiful.
Yeah. So
yes.
So absolutely, that made me, more in tune, more aligned. I'm not going to tell you that no hardship, no challenges, no dark nights of the soul, dark years of the soul, lots of journeys, but still, having the tools to go back within and refreshing, going back to the document and still living in my purpose. So.
Yes.
And I always refine it. And one of the biggest gifts of that journey was to be able to develop that inner dialogue with my trusted source. And I think I shared with you, Tim, way back when I read right before we met a book that Elisa Romeo wrote called the Meet Your Soul, which is about also journaling a dialogue with your soul. So it doesn't matter how you call it, but there is a method of having that internal communication, which is fundamental to a lot of things. It is for finding your purpose, to get answers to, whether you're sitting in a restaurant or going on a date or doing a job interview or finding your life purpose. That voice is really meaningful, and giving it presence and permission is really fun, incredible. So
yes, and only we can hear it. Only we can feel it. It's always speaking to us. So we really get to listen to it and say yes to it.
Awesome. I'm grateful. I want to look if I don't have any other questions. Do we?
I think we're good.
We're good. We're good here. We went a little beyond our, original time. Really, really appreciate your guys' generosity and sharing your purpose.
Thank you.
It's incredible. I think we had a good turnout and very excited. Any final words?
No, thank you so much. My final word, I said no, but I mean yes, is that if you are looking for a guide to help you discover your purpose, you can book a free call with me, and I am intimately acquainted with 75 of our guides, from purpose to self-discovery, spirituality, relationships, and they are equipped and able to help you on your journey. So the call is free. It's guidely.com/concierge. So I would love to chat with you.
Any final words, Tim or Karen?
There should be something, huh? Like discover your purpose. Live life full out. I mean, there's something like that here.
Yeah. When you're lying in your deathbed looking back, don't you want to be saying, did it? Yes.
Did it. That's right.
Okay, we're ending there for sure.
Yeah. I want to wake up in the morning and say, I'm doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Blessings.